Hi, and welcome back to the Angloscope podcast, where we explore language, culture, social issues, and many other hot topics while helping you improve your English. Today, we're diving into something that affects just about all of us, whether at work, at home, or even online: generational gaps. Are millennials and Gen Z really that different from Gen X or the boomers? Or are we just looking at the same issues through a different lens? To unpack this, I'm joined by someone who always has thoughtful takes on social and cultural trends. Matt, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Peter. Always a pleasure. And wow, this topic, it's so real. I feel like I deal with this almost every day, especially at work or when talking to family.
Right. Same here. So let's start by laying some groundwork. We throw around these generational labels a lot: boomers, Gen X, millennials, Gen Z. But what do they actually mean?
Well, I'd say they're broad categories based on when you were born, but more than that, they reflect the world you grew up in. A boomer grew up in a very different reality than someone born after 2000. For example, boomers, that's 1946 to 1964, grew up with post-war optimism. Gen X, born mid-60s to 1980, were more independent, saw the rise of computers and cable TV. Then you've got millennials, 1981 to about 1996, the first internet generation. And Gen Z, they're born digital, smartphones from day one.
Exactly. And I think the internet is a huge turning point. It didn't just change how we get information, it changed how we think, how we connect, even how we form opinions.
Totally. That's why even a few years difference can feel like a whole generation apart. I've worked with 23-year-olds who are Gen Z, and they communicate so differently from 33-year-old millennials. It's not just about slang, it's how they approach work, mental health, relationships, everything.
Let's talk about communication. That seems to be one of the biggest friction points between generations.
Oh yeah. I mean, older generations, boomers especially, prefer face-to-face or at least a proper phone call. Gen X is a bit more flexible. But millennials started the whole just text me culture. And Gen Z, if it's not a meme or a voice note, they're not interested. Emails are like ancient history to them.
Yeah, I've seen Gen Z interns completely ghost an email chain, but be super responsive on Slack or even Instagram DMs. It's like different rules for different platforms.
Exactly. And sometimes those small differences lead to big misunderstandings. Like when a Gen Z employee writes "okay" with a thumbs up emoji to a Gen X manager, that thumbs up might come across as cold or sarcastic when it was meant to be polite.
And speaking of the workplace, let's talk about career values. Do you think the generations actually want different things?
In some ways, yes. Boomers often value job stability and loyalty. Gen X is kind of pragmatic. They want a decent life but know not to expect too much from companies. Then millennials came in with "find your passion," and they pushed for flexibility, purpose, and work-life balance. Now Gen Z is saying, "We want all of that, but without the burnout, and we want you to mean it."
And they're not afraid to walk away if the culture's toxic.
Exactly. Mental health is a priority. That's a big difference. Gen Z won't just push through, they're setting boundaries early, which some older folks see as entitlement, but it's actually awareness.
Technology obviously plays a huge role in this. But what about social and political views? Do you think younger generations are really more progressive?
Generally, yeah. I think growing up with social media has made Gen Z, and to some extent millennials, more aware of global issues. They're more comfortable talking about things like gender identity, race, inequality. They've grown up during climate change, COVID, economic instability, and they're asking tough questions. But that can sometimes feel radical to older generations who see activism as disruptive.
Right. And sometimes that creates a kind of generational tension, where older people say, "You're too sensitive," and younger folks say, "You don't care enough."
Exactly. It's not that one side is right and the other wrong. They just have different reference points. One group had to survive and adapt, the other is trying to redesign the system entirely.
So what do we do with all this? How do we bridge these gaps?
I think it starts with curiosity instead of judgment. Ask questions. Learn why someone younger or older sees the world the way they do, and be willing to translate. If you're Gen Z, explain your point in a way your Gen X boss can relate to. If you're a boomer, don't dismiss younger people just because they communicate differently.
Yeah, it's all about respect, right? And realizing we can learn from each other. Imagine combining the work ethic and experience of older generations with the creativity and vision of the younger ones.
That would be powerful. Less us versus them and more, how can we work together better?
Love that. Well, Alex, this has been such a great conversation. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Peter. Always happy to talk generational dynamics. They affect so much of our lives.
Absolutely. And to our listeners, what do you think? Do you notice these generational differences in your family, at work, or even online? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like this episode, subscribe to Angloscope, and share it with someone from another generation. Start a conversation. Who knows what you might discover? Until next time, take care and keep learning.